Hello. When I meet with prospective sellers of a business, one of the first questions I always ask is, what will you do post-closing? The reason I ask that is that I want to know how prepared they are. And we discussed the preparation of one's business for sale in prior video blogs, but today I want to focus on what you can realistically expect when transitioning a business. This is the in-between stage, the stage between where you will still own the business with full and absolute responsibilities and the period when you are free and clear of all responsibility. We call this the transition period. In order to better understand what your expectations ought to be during this transition period, I think it may be helpful to firstly identify some of the things you should not expect. In most cases, you should not expect to compete with the recently sold business, sell and go without providing a reasonable training and or transition period. You should not expect to make warranties and representations that are not absolutely true and correct. You should not pass on your liabilities to the new owners or not be accountable for pre-closing events or other such liabilities. You should not expect to get paid for non-balance sheet items. You should also not expect that your money will last forever and that your problems, whether financial or otherwise, will suddenly be gone. These are small samplings of things you cannot expect when transitioning a business. So now let us address each one of those items. Expect to not compete with the recently sold business? Well, you cannot sell your business and compete with it, at least for a specific period of time or within a specific geographical restriction. So expect to give the new owner a reasonable opportunity to recover his or her investment and get a reasonable return on their invested capital. You would want the very same. So be respectful, and if you want to be in the same business again, then simply don't sell it. Expect to not sell and go without providing a reasonable training and transition period. All too often, especially where the seller is of retirement age, they simply want to sell and go away. In any business sale, there is an element of personal goodwill that's being transferred. This is the knowledge of you as the owner that you have about the business. This is information that, though likely taken for granted by you, is essential to the purchaser and needs to be transferred over to the purchaser through the training and transition period. Such period can also be a very traumatic period for some sellers, as often a new buyer will land up not following the systems or processes that you've put in place or not doing the things that you're recommending. Though this is not a good thing, all you can do is remind them that the systems and processes that you used or that you have in place helped you get there, and that it would be best to follow them initially until they really have a good handle on things, and then after you've done that, just simply let it go, or it'll drive you crazy. Or as we say in Italian, forget about it. Expect to not make warranties and representations that are not absolutely true and correct. Be aware of the required representations and warranties, since a breach of these representations and warranties could cause you much pain, discomfort, and money through such mechanisms as offsets against vendor notes, holdbacks, escrows, lawsuits, etc. Of course, expect to not pass on your liabilities to a new owner or not to be accountable for pre-closing events or liabilities. You have to be accountable for that. Most businesses are purchased on a debt-free basis. So with the exception of transferable current liabilities, be sure that you have accounted for satisfying such liabilities at or before the closing or from the proceeds of the closing. You should also expect to not get paid for non-balance sheet items. This is all too common on very small businesses where some inventory is not accounted for on the balance sheet, or some of the assets have perhaps been written off to zero on the balance sheet, and yet the sellers still expect to get paid for those assets over and above the purchase price. Again, forget about it, as only a fool would do that. What is in the balance sheet is what generates the earnings, and since the purchaser typically pays for the ability to generate those earnings, those assets need to be included in the sale and at no additional cost, period. A big one is the expectations that your money will last forever, and yes, also that your problems, whether financial or otherwise, will be gone once you've sold your business. Well, let me tell you, nothing could be further from the truth. Remember that unless wisely invested, the money will flow out just as quickly as it got in, and that all the problems and issues you had before will likely still be there because they're likely not a result of the business. but your own creation. And so those still will be there. And the sale event will not remove them. Though it may appear to help in some cases, it really, really removes them. In closing, be aware of and be realistic of your own expectations prior to, during, and post-closing. By selling your business, you may get the money, and you may get the time to do things that you've always dreamed of doing. However, the loss of purpose and social connection sometimes could potentially also leave you feeling a little empty. So be aware of those things. Take the time to consider all the facts. Plan appropriately with the advice of those that have gone there before you, as well as the professional help of knowledgeable and professional business brokers and advisors. Thank you.